Hello everyone and welcome to Sutton's Days and to this week's canning chat. Very excited, a little over 4.5 pages, maybe total 5 pages for questions, some really good questions. We're going to do a deep dive into the first one. I think that you guys are really going to enjoy it. It's been a topic of conversation here for a little bit, and you're going to see that I waffle, okay? If you have canning questions that do not need an immediate response, throw them in the comments section below, and I will put them on the next canning chat, unless you get a plethora of answers from my helpers, okay, then I'll probably skip it if we've got too many. But if you put it down below, I will add it to the canning chat. If you need an immediate answer, then please email me at SuttonsDaze@outlook.com. That is down below in the description box, and I will do my best to be prompt in answering your question. We're going to get started here with a fun one. Linda Horton says, is it safe to can small pieces of ham and bean soup? There has been a lot of discussion in my world about this lately. And I reached out to some folks and we had multiple discussions about it. And once we kind of came to the end of it, I went, well, that makes sense. Why didn't I think about that? Well, it's because I've got other stuff to do. Okay, but here's where we're at. So there is no tested, safe, approved method for canning cured meats. That includes ham, that includes corned beef, that includes, whatever. So you won't find it, period. But we're talking about an entire jar of ham. We're just going to say ham for the sake of this video. However, if you, like we did the bean video, remember I mentioned how you could add ham to that because it said so in the book. And what it is it's not a full jar of ham. It's in there for flavoring. It's a little bit. And so that's a recipe that they have tested. Okay, that's a key factor right there. They tested that recipe. They know that it's safe. So when you're looking at canning an entire jar of, say, ham, first, it should always include liquid, but that hasn't been tested. They can't say that it's okay because they haven't tested it. So they don't know for certain that the time, temp, pressure is all adequate to kill off all the microorganisms in the jar in order to make it safe to put on your shelf. That's what it means. They haven't tested it yet to make sure that it's okay. Don't ask me when they're going to test it. I have absolutely no idea, okay? But for some of you that have called me out on my corned beef video that I have not repeated, okay, that is the same reasoning behind the corned beef. And I can tell you from working with the meat, okay, because I pay attention to the craziest things when I'm working with meat, is that the beef, before it's corned, has a totally different density than the beef after it's been corned. So if you're taking a brisket, if you're taking just a cheap roast, whatever it is, and you're corning it, and you go to cut it, you will notice a definite change in the density. That density is what comes into question regarding the canning process and whether or not 75 and 90 minutes is adequate in order to can it. They haven't tested it yet. So I'm hoping, cross your fingers with me, maybe everybody email them, okay, and ask them to test ham and corned beef. That would be cool. I'd really love that. But as far as adding it to ham and bean soup, yes, you're good. You have to make that judgment call pretty much on your own unless you can find an approved recipe. When we're talking about approved recipes, we're talking about the National Center for Home Food Preservation, period. Ball or Newell apparently does their own testing. Bernardin, which is part of Ball or Newell, does their own testing. That's Canada. And Pomona's does their own testing. It's Pomona's. So everybody has their own testing methods. My understanding is that those are not readily disclosed. So, take it for what it is. Okay. Terry Henderson. Terry Henderson says, will you be addressing canning in 2-quart Ball or Kerr jars? I recently caught someone talking about not using them for canning and that Ball says not to. Back in the day, certainly 2-quart Kerr jars were used for canning. At least one of the jar companies had a recipe for canning whole chickens in them 50 years ago. Okay, yeah. We routinely canned hot applesauce in 2 quarts also. Must confess, we use the countertop. See, yeah, okay, so I'm not gonna. Anyway, so here's the deal with the half-gallon jars. They're basically half-gallon jars. Is that the only thing that they're approved for doing now is juices, like say strawberry juice, lemon juice, not lemon juice. I don't use them for that. But there are juices that you can do in those, and they're water bath. Okay, water bath only. They do not have not tested using them for any other foods because they just haven't. They won't fit, obviously, in the small 16-quart canner, I don't believe. They might fit in, well, yeah, they would fit in the 23-quart, but there's no time. We have no time to base it off of. So there's no time that, you know, we know that pints are 75. We know that quarts are 90. Would you automatically amp that up to 180 minutes with a 2-quart? Don't do it. Okay. Wow. That's like seriously over processing. Just do it in quarts. So if you want to stick a whole chicken into a jar, I don't know, people. Okay. Don't do it in a half-gallon jar. Don't do it in a 2-quart jar. They're just not approved yet for canning. They're not for that. Now, I know back in the day, you know, 50 years ago, we had better minerals and vitamins in our soil. We had more acidic tomatoes, and I was a lot cuter. So it's a different world than it is today with everything, especially with our food. So I don't care what they did 50 years ago because it's irrelevant today. Our food is 100% different today, even if you're using heritage, whatever, than it was back then. And because in 50 years, we've learned a lot. We've learned a lot. So, yeah, no. I use them, pardon me, for dry storage, and you can use them for juice. They have a method somewhere on the site for juice. If I find it, I will link it, okay? Kathleen Secor. I'm new at canning. 2 months ago, I canned beef for the first time. Congratulations. I had a little problem and had to change the lids and restart from the beginning. All the cans sealed, but I refrigerated them. Why? Just because I was nervous. Are they good or should I get rid of them? Okay. Stop doing this, people. Stop putting it in the refrigerator. So something happened and you redid the process. You put new lids and you reprocessed them. And then you didn't trust the process. And so you put them all in the refrigerator. No, you cannot take them out and put them on a shelf. You can't do it. So use them. Unfortunately, they're going to take up room in your fridge until you do. Are they safe? Yeah, but you can no longer put them on the shelf. So don't do that. Trust the process. It's really important to trust the process. In order to trust it, you have to follow it. Okay, so yeah, I'm glad you're here too, by the way. Houston Lady 1 says, I canned hamburger meat without getting the sterilized jars hot. I sterilized the jars the day before. I have a seal. I think the meat is okay. The meat is fine. The meat is absolutely fine. I'm going to let you in on a little secret here, okay? I wash my jars when I'm pressure canning. I do not sterilize them. You just, you don't need to, okay? You are taking that meat and you are putting it into that jar, and then you are putting it into a pressure canner that exceeds the temperature necessary in order to kill botulism and any other microorganisms. It's sealing and you're good. There's no need to sterilize that jar at all. Now, they say that there's no need anymore to sterilize water bath jars. That's what they say. Okay, but you have to make sure they're really clean, and you should have them in the water staying warm before you add your jams, jellies, that kind of thing. But yes, they're good. Put them on the shelf. Give them some love. Enjoy. Ursula Snyder says, when using store-bought meats, smart idea using some type of label method, stickers, masking tape, painter's tape, and write the date of purchase, barcode, lot numbers, and store purchase with a constant meat calls for bacteria contamination and tiny metal shavings. This is a way to check your pantry stock to ensure you did or did not buy and preserve the contained meat. That's a really great idea. One of our channel moderators, Ed, he also suggested the same thing, I want to say 3 or 4 years ago now, because there were a whole bunch of recalls going on then. If you have the time, patience, and desire, I think that's a really great system to do. I am fortunate that very little of our meat is, well, yeah, I don't buy beef that's from the store for the most part, ground beef, you know. I can't remember last time I bought ground beef from the store. Okay. But I haven't run into that issue. How's that? But if that's something that you want to do, I think it's a really great idea. Okay, so, dog, sorry. Debbie Nugent says, I have a couple of questions. I never catch it live, but I go back and watch it. This is never a live video. This is never a live video. One, can you can yellow squash? No, there's no approved method for it. It's soft, it's gross. Number two, if you have redone a batch of bone broth, they didn't seal, can it be redone again? Absolutely. New lid, start the whole process over again, wipe the rims, put a new lid on it, and do the process over again, and you're fine. Absolutely fine to do it. Randy reminds, I hope I'm saying that right, when I'm going to can hot food, I do run my jars under hot water to warm them up so there's no shock of hot food going into a cold jar. So far, no incidents. Would canning an empty jar of water be wasting one of the precious lids? Kind of a twofer here, okay? So I know I've talked a lot about having thermal shock, you know, putting cold jars into hot water, vice versa. But when you're filling the jars, I have never experienced thermal shock when I'm filling the jars, okay? That normally would occur when you're filling the jars into the canner. So unless your house is 30 degrees, it's highly unlikely that you'll run into a thermal shock issue unless those glasses are like refrigerator cold, okay? So you don't have to do that, not necessary. And if you're doing water bath, they should be in the water anyway, you know, heating up. So I don't worry about thermal shock where that's concerned. Where I'm concerned about thermal shock is when I am taking the jar that I have filled and prepped and put it into the canner. So if I'm canning ugly chicken and that chicken's cold because I don't like dealing with warm chicken, then that cools off the jar, okay? And so then I don't want to put it into a canner of hot water because the temperature difference may be enough. I've had it occur more than once, where the temperature difference is enough to cause thermal shock and break the jar. Then I've wasted the chicken, I've wasted the jar, I have to start over again. It's a pain. So that is the concern, is putting hot or cold into the opposite water in the canner. It's one of those things that you have to be very aware of, okay? But don't overthink it. So it's all good. And then wouldn't canning an empty jar of water be wasting one of the precious lids? If you're putting an extra jar in there, okay, just for stability, for stabilizing everything, you don't have to put a lid on it. Just fill it with water. If you are looking to can water, I recommend having a few jars of canned water because it's good. It's sterile water. It's good for medical purposes. It's good, you know, any number of things. I did a video on it. I'll hunt it up. But don't put a lid on it if you don't want to waste the lid. I absolutely get that. Cindy says, can I put more than 2 layers in a 23-quart Presto if it's the squatty half pint? There is enough room, but don't know if it's safe. I believe, from what I've been told, you can go 3. That's it. Just 3. And always a rack in between. Down below and up in between. Ed and Suzel Kendall say, wow, I made a few mistakes and will toss a few jars from my first year of canning. Question, though, my beef stew and pork paprika stew leaked in the canner. What did I do wrong? They did seal and remain so, but taste like dishwater. Are they safe? I wasn't there. I have absolutely no way to know what happened, okay? So if they taste like dishwater, they shouldn't. How's that? I'm just thinking to myself here. I'm not really familiar with pork paprika. One, because I can barely say it. Siphoning happens. I get that. So watch your headspace. Okay. They sealed. So the siphoning did not stop the seal. But at some point, it sounds like something got in there, or there was an issue with one of the spices and it turned the flavor not good. Without me being there and knowing step by step what you did or did not do, I really cannot sufficiently answer this question. I apologize. Let's see. Jewel Oliver. I'm a new canner and love it. I know. It's so great, isn't it? I have a question about canning sweet potatoes. Can I peel and chop them before boiling the sweet potatoes? Yes. Yeah, you can. Yeah. I find it easier to do so too. I don't want to, I don't like handling hot potatoes because I tend to get burnt. So yeah, I'm trying to think of the process off the top of my head, but yeah, I mean, I peel and chop them up to the size that I want before I blanch them and put them into the jars. So yeah, absolutely, you can. Go for it. Peaches McBee. Question, I'm new at pressure canning. I only tried it once so far. I had trouble getting it to stay at pressure. I have a gas stove, and even on the smallest burner at low, it wanted to go above 11 psi. I'm sure I'm doing something wrong. You're doing nothing wrong. Every single stove out there, even if we had the same exact make and model, are going to run differently. It's just the nature of the beast, okay? They all have their own personalities. So I have noticed the same issue with using the gas stove, which I'm new at, you know. I've only been doing it for like a year, a little over a year now. But the solution that I found for this is to buy the weighted regulator, commonly called the jiggler. There's a link down below for it so that you can check it out, and I'll put a video down below to show you the difference and how it works. That to me was the easiest solution when you're dealing with something that absolutely at its lowest possible, you know, will not maintain 11. So that should help you a lot because that'll get you right to where you want to go. So I'll be sure to put those links down below for you. Kay Anderson, hello Kay, said, my friend scored me 5 cases of brand new quart jars still wrapped in the plastic. They had been outside all winter but were undercover and are in perfect condition. He said driving out to my place he could hear all the lids pinging. Was this due to the temperature change in his truck? Are the lids still safe to use? Like I said, everything is brand new, so I'm hoping. Kay, you are golden. Yes, it's absolutely normal. If they've been sitting in a shed all winter, right? And then you put them into his truck. I'm assuming his truck had a little bit of heat on or something, so they started warming up, and so they'll start to ping. That doesn't mean they're sealed. A lot of people for a while were saying, oh, that's no good. That's no good. That's not true. That's exactly what they do in the warehouse where they're stored after they're made. Absolutely no issue. So those lids, I have never had one of those lids fail. Never. Now, granted, I don't buy a lot of my jars new, but yeah, I had 1.5 pint jars that I bought the first time they said they weren't going to make them anymore. And I had cases of them out in the breezeway. The breezeway typically stays around 40 degrees in the dead of winter unless it gets, you know, really, really below. And they were out there for 2 years before I touched them. So they were up, down, up, down, up, down, up, down, okay? Never had a problem. They all sealed. So use them. Cat Harvey. Let's see. I have a question about the rings. I've noticed some strange black stuff on my dish towel when drying my rings. It's on the inside of the rings in the nooks and crannies where the top and sides meet, if that makes sense. I'm wondering where this comes from. It happens with new rings and used rings, and it happens with both when I pour vinegar in the canner and when I don't. Any idea where this is coming from? I know what you're talking about, and I know that it's nothing to worry about. Because like you said, it happens whether you use vinegar or not, okay? Because my first thing was that, you know, vinegar maybe. But honestly, there are some rings that I have the same thing with. It's just, it may be the fact that, you know, a little bit of the food came out when it was processing. And so it just needs to be, you know, it just needs to be washed and rinsed off. Or it could just be something to do with the metal being wet. I don't know for sure, but I know they're still good. And you're safe to use them. So just use them. Okay, Debbie Miller. I've always heard the 10-minute venting time is that added to the 75 minutes, or is it subtracted? Okay, it's not a dumb question. There's no such thing as a dumb question, okay? So you're getting ready to do your first ugly chicken and thighs, and yes, you do not have to take the skin off, okay? It just melts down into this glorious, flavorful fat in the jar. It's fantastic. Anyway, so here's the process, okay? And all of these times matter, every single one. So I really highly recommend that you go check out the National Center for Home Food Preservation, and it spells out the times. But this entire process is the process that has been tested. That is why they say it's safe. So you put the jars in there, you put the lid on, you turn on the heat. When it starts venting, you set your timer for 10 minutes. That's your first step, okay? When you hit that 10 minutes, you put the regulator on and you wait for it to come up to pressure. That's your second step. And then you start your timer for 75 or 90 minutes, depending on the time, you know, the jar that you're using. And then you let it go for that time and you turn off your heat, okay? And you let it completely depressurize 100% on its own. Third step right there. Then you undo the thing. So all of that time, all of that, 1, 2, and 3, all of that time that I just spelled out is part of the equation factored in to safe canning. Do not skimp on those times. They are all very, very important. I hope that helps. Caffeined Prepper. I love that name. Okay. 99% of the jars you get are used. Where should I be looking to get some less expensive, hopefully, jars? Okay. I've always bought used jars. I see no point in giving Newell Corporation more of my money than I have to. So, I hit up Facebook Marketplace. I hit up Craigslist. I watch estate sales, garage sales, anything like that. Okay. Now, prior to 2020, I never paid more than $1/4 a jar. I can walk away from jars. I'm good. So if they wanted too much for them, I said, good luck to you and see you later. So 25 cents a jar is what I used to pay. Pandemic prices bumped that up to 50 cents a jar because they were so hard to get. People brought the price up and I'm like, okay, I'm willing to pay 50 cents for a used jar because in my mind, after that, I might as well just buy the new jars, So yeah, I mean, check any place you can, Craigslist, Marketplace, put it in search of, on your Facebook page or something, watch estate sales, garage sales, and you can grab them just about every place, at some point or another. Now I know some areas may not have them as readily available. I thought that I was in an area that didn't. Turns out I do. So, they're there. You just have to keep an eye out for them. They may not be always there exactly when you're wanting them, but if you put your feelers out, they're there. Charlotte Hensley asks, I'm going to start raising meat rabbits. Congratulations, and meat chickens. I have canned ugly chicken before. Ugly chicken for the win. Yes. But I've never canned rabbit. Would I use the same chicken time and method? Okay. Excellent question. Good luck on your adventure. It's going to be fantastic. And yes, if you go to the National Center for Home Food Preservation, they actually clump those two together. They are canned exactly the same. So be sure to check out that process so that you're aware of all the finessing they might include in it. Pardon me, Roxanne Bennett. Hi, I was wondering if you think it's okay to wash your jars in bleach. I don't have any objection to that. None at all. If you feel it's necessary, go ahead and wash them in bleach. Go ahead and dry them very well and then let them sit open, for at least 24 hours, because my understanding is that any bleach, residue will evaporate in 24 hours. So yeah, I like bleach. I don't use it as much as I would like to because I have a septic system now, but yeah. Kat Garcia. I will be moving soon, long distance, and I'm stressed about the best way to move my full jars. Any suggestions? Yeah. Go to your local liquor store and get the boxes that they get their liquor shipped to, and it has the dividers. Put socks around the jars. Put lids on, or put the rings on for travel purposes, because if one does not make it, you don't want it to open up in a car or whatever. Anything that you can do to buffer the jars from each other and keep them from jostling around too much. And you are good to go. And then I messed up somewhere and I didn't get the name. So somebody said, I recently started flipping my second rack over when I noticed the round bubble feet on the rack bottom were resting on some of the lower lids. Do you think the feet could interfere with the process? I don't. No. I think it's a really cool catch, but no, I don't think it does. Because I don't believe they're that deep or weigh that much, and I don't believe that they totally touch the lid. I could be wrong. But if you're more comfortable tipping it upside down, rock on. You're good. I'm sorry I don't have your name. I'm kind of bummed about that. Prep Rebel. Hello, my friend. My mom used to can and use wax as a sealing method, as well as adding the lid and the ring. Is this still done? Absolutely not. No. What we've learned over time is that it does not provide a proper seal. It does not completely seal it, which is why when they took the wax off, sometimes you'd have mold. Now, personally, I'm not risking that. You know what I mean? So no, they don't. They do still sell it, and the funny part is it's an edible wax, if you're into eating wax, But I know that my mother would always add some of that when she made her peanut butter balls to the chocolate, because then it would set up really good. So, I mean, I'm sure it's used for, you know, a gazillion different things. I probably have half a dozen boxes of it in my breezeway, but not for canning. And it's not something that I would trust or use. Rita Hunter says, when I do half pints for a whole batch, can I triple stack? Yes, you can. Just triple stack, though. That's it. Michelle P., final question. Pressure canners can be used for all foods, perhaps not jelly. Water bath is used for high acid foods. Can you process tomatoes without citric acid or lemon in a pressure canner safely? No, you can't. And that is because they have engineered our tomatoes today to be less acidic. And I don't care if you're using a heritage breed, people. Stop coming at me with this stuff, okay? The dirt that you're growing it in is different. The tomatoes are different, even if they're a heritage breed. And no, you cannot test for the acidity at home properly, okay? So, no, you have to add the citric acid. You really do. That's what makes it safer, whether you're pressure canning or water bath canning. Now, while I do water bath canning, it's not my favorite, okay? I really like pressure canning. So I will pressure can the tomatoes with the citric acid, and I just don't have a problem. If it does bother you, if it's too acidic, you can always add a teeny tiny bit of baking soda when you open it, you know, and be careful, it can, you know, but you can do that to calm down some of the acidity. But yeah, you have to. It's one of those things that you have to do. Okay, you guys, that was all of the questions for this week. Some awesome questions, some great conversation. I'm glad we got the ham thing out of there. And I am really looking forward to this. You know, I don't believe in canning season. There's no such thing as canning season in my world, because we can 12 months out of the year. But with canning season upon us, okay, make sure that you get out there and get your supplies early. You should have gotten them already. And make sure to get your lids. If you are interested, 4jars.shop. There's a link down below. And if you use the code SuttonsDaze, then you get 10% off of your purchase price. So I hope that you do that and check it out. They're really great lids. I've been using them all year now. They're amazing. They're what we needed when we needed it. They didn't let us down. They didn't say, nope, sorry, not manufacturing more for you, like Newell did. So yeah, I'm sticking with them for a long time, because I take care of companies that take care of us, and that's a company that takes care of us. Okay, I'm off my soapbox. So everybody, I hope that you have had a wonderful Thursday. And remember, until next time, be safe.